Hello and welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go a little mad sometimes. I'm Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
And today it is prom season. If you did not know, my senior prom is actually tomorrow at the time of recording. And we thought it would be apropos, if you will, if we were to talk about the 2008 remake of the 1980 film Prom Night. Now, you may be wondering why we did this instead of reviewing the original or reviewing both, but I have a very simple explanation for that one. Matt and I both have a mutual, at least, love for this movie. I don't know your full opinions on it, but I am a Prom Night remake apologist. I have shown my contempt for horror remakes in past episodes, but there are 3 horror remakes that I will die on the hill that they are better than the original or good in their own right. Barring The Thing, those 3 are this movie, Black Christmas 2006, and the Stepfather remake, which was actually made by the same people who made this movie. So yeah, this story follows a young lady named Donna on her senior prom night as she is stalked by someone who terrorized her from long ago. I don't know why I always feel the need to give the log line of a movie right before I go in depth on the plot, but old habits die hard, isn't that right?
Yep.
Anyway, let's start. So, main character, Donna Keppel, is being driven home by Mrs. Hines and her best friend, Mrs. Hines' daughter, Lisa. They went to a movie, and when she goes inside, she looks for her family, and she sees her dad in the living room and assumes he's passed out on the couch, as dads tend to do. And she goes up to try to see her brother, but he is also seemingly asleep, but she discovers that he is also deceased. She hears a man screaming, "Where is she?" and in fear decides to hide under the bed. As this happens, her mom is brought in at the behest of this man, and she does not give up Donna's location, and in return is stabbed to death. Donna tries to make a quick escape, but we find out that this is either a dream or the recollections of her at her therapist's office. During the session, she says that her nightmares are back, including this has happened before, and the therapist reasons that this is merely a product of large transitions in life, and that her fears are irrational due to the fact that the assailant, Richard Fenton, has been locked away in an asylum 3,000 miles away from her. And then she is seen getting her hair done with her girlfriends. They have dialogue that is pretty much standard fare and frankly inoffensive. But she thinks she sees Richard Fenton stalking her outside. And, fun fact, the shot of Richard Fenton is actually in front of the original Myers house from the original Halloween,
Wow.
which is now a chiropractor's office. So not only did the murder of Judith Myers happen in that house, but also the murder of basic medical professionalism. I'm very proud of that one.
Yeah, don't expect an apology video later.
Yeah.
We are, as you can tell, we are not politically correct here.
Yeah. And then the next scene happens where Donna is in her dress getting ready for her prom, and her Aunt Karen gives Donna her late mother's shawl. Then she goes downstairs to meet her date, Bobby, and they get into a limo. And there's with Lisa and Claire already in, along with their dates, Ronnie and Michael. There is a montage of them enjoying their time in the limo before getting to prom. The dance is being held at the Grand Pacific Hotel, which is a large and very luxurious hotel. It has an archway entrance, and every lobby is very spacious, and also are the rooms. The friend group goes in, and Donna and Bobby start making out while Donna's family's killer, I apologize, Richard Fenton, is watching with tears in her eyes. And yeah, before we move on, What's your 2 cents on this section of the movie?
This section I really like. One thing about the movie that's worth pointing out is that I think it was either the first or one of the first slasher movies to be rated PG-13.
Yeah, that's possibly true. That custom did sort of come into play during this era. So
Well, I mean,
yeah.
and that's just kind of what it said. I saw this on Amazon Prime, and I saw it in that little trivia box.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. How was it that they were able to do that? Like they didn't show any actual like holes from wounds.
I think it's just that the film's use of blood is very limited. I think there's like with the MPAA like a certain amount of on-screen blood you can show that differentiates between PG-13 and R. That's conjecture. I don't know if that's true.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the beginning scene I thought was pretty good. I mean, it seemed pretty standard, at least I thought, for what would happen, what someone would go through when they experienced a traumatic event like that. I mean, granted, Donna, she still is doing amazing for herself, despite having gone through something just so just hellish. But yeah, it's I liked it. I don't. What was that? Since we're at this, since we've established that it's at a hotel, what do you want to say that thing you were thinking?
Yeah, but before we started recording, I was thinking, I thought it was strange, to say the least, for a high school's prom to be held at a hotel where kids can opt to stay in their own rooms overnight, because, I mean, hormonal teenagers, prom night, that's just asking for a teenage pregnancy. If you've ever seen Family Guy, this is the epitome of the prom night dumpster baby.
I mean, really what they should have done is had one of the hotel staff, waiting at the door the next morning after prom and handing out morning after pills to the girls who were checking out and leaving.
Yeah.
They actually did something similar. Tucker told me this, so I don't know if it's true. Apparently one place actually handed out condoms to students as they were leaving prom.
Yeah, that's I mean, I could understand that, but that's a bit of a heavier topic to discuss in a podcast review of fucking prom night. So, I'll just leave it at that. But as far as... are you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm good. You're good.
Yeah, well, as far as the movie itself, the movie in the beginning sort of has an element of imagination to it that is reminiscent of Carpenter's Halloween, in the sense that violence isn't explicitly shown, but it's almost felt more than actual on-screen violence, as seen by Donna's mother's shrieks of terror as she is being stabbed. And I like Donna's sort of, I don't want to say like fragility, but sort of that she acknowledges that bad things have happened to her in the past, but she's trying to make the best of what she has now, even having a serious boyfriend. It's a common custom for slasher movies where the victims will sink into self-destruction after traumatic events. So I do enjoy that she's at least trying her best to have a semblance of a normal life. And one other thing. Again, I was a little confused by the flashback scene during the therapist's office, but since we can infer that was a dream she had, I'm assuming it's a Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 situation where some of the things in the dream absolutely did happen, but some were embellished or fabricated entirely.
Well, why do you think some of it was fabricated?
Well, like, at the end, she walks out, and then there's that cop car passing by, and then Richard is, like, right behind her, or from what I remember. But it's possible that he actually doesn't want to kill her because of his obsession, which we'll find out about later. And other than that, I could see why someone wouldn't like this movie for how one note the characters are, but honestly, one of the reasons I like this movie is because like it's a slasher movie called Prom Night. I'm not like going in expecting an Academy Award winning drama, so some of the characters might be a little one note, but that's sort of the sunk cost you get with horror movies. But other than that, I actually really like it. I think there's a lot of emotion in this movie, far past its kills or its killer. So, yeah. I'll just continue with the narration. So Richard ends up going to the front desk, and after overhearing Bobby,
Ronnie,
whoopsie, say that they're staying in 304, the group then goes to the ballroom right after, and their chaperone confiscates liquor that Michael had on him. As this is happening, Detective Wynn finds out that Richard Fenn escaped 3 days earlier, and he and his partner, Detective Nash, go to the Turner's house to warn them. While walking out of the station, Wynn gives Nash a rundown of the situation. Richard Fenton was Donna's science teacher in high school, and he killed Donna's family because of his obsession with her. He was later arrested at his house by Detective Wynn, and when they looked through his house, they found all the pictures and drawings of Donna. Wynn was expecting him to get the death penalty, but he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was sentenced to life in a mental asylum, presumably. And Donna was actually forced to ID him in the interrogation room, in which he said that they would be like together forever or what have you. He also pointed out that Jack and Karen were her legal guardians, and it also shows how Richard actually escaped from the asylum by slipping out of an air vent and slitting a guard's throat. And after checking in, Richard lures a maid into his room, and he then stabs her and steals her master key. What's your take on this part?
Well, first off, is it just me, or did the guy who played Richard Fenton do a fantastic job in this
Yeah,
movie?
he did a bang-up job. He's one of the best, at least, killer performances in which you see and hear him talk and stuff that maybe I've seen, but...
Yeah, and I mean, and it kind of makes me wonder, though, if he was even really technically acting, because, like, he had that, that look in his eyes, that, just, that, deranged look that, in my opinion, you really can't fake.
Yeah, it's a common, like, refrain with criminal profilers that serial killers have a sort of look in their eyes that's just completely vacant. And I think he actually nails that perfectly.
He does. And so, and there was another thing. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, maybe I should become a prom chaperone, because I bet they let you actually keep the liquor you confiscate from the students. I mean, I doubt they really care what you do with it as long as they don't have it, so... But, yeah, it's, yeah, it did seem really, like, realistic to me, like, it made me think, this kind of thing seems like something that could happen, like, he's, it's just a crazy guy, he's obsessed with one student, and it's like, he was actually her biology teacher, and I guess he was hoping to teach her in a more hands-on way about the reproductive system, but,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's like, in one of the pictures that he actually has of him, like, in the science lab with her, and he's actually got his arm around her. It's like, yeah, you're really not supposed to do that. And so, but one thing I really did kind of wonder is, it's just like, why her? Like, why Donna?
Yeah. I think that. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think it's one of those things that sort of add mystique to the movie. You know, that I don't really know.
I mean, maybe he was. I mean, I'm just basing this off what I've seen in like documentaries about this kind of thing. My only guess would be that he had some really serious mother issues, and Donna reminded him of his mother in some way.
That would be my best guess.
All right, well that's all really I have to say.
Well, yeah. I think the scene where he's checking in is actually really tense because you can see, like, Ronnie is checking in and he's right next to him and he's sort of got his head, like, facing away so he doesn't see his face. Yeah, like you said, I mean, wish I could be a school chaperone. I'd steal all the kids' beer, weed, what have you, and me and the teachers would have a good-ass time. Idris Elba, who we recently talked about in the movie Beast last summer, he is an excellent addition to this movie. Usually the cop characters in movies will be, again, sort of one note, but I think he has a lot of depth to him, where he's almost like Fenton's Captain Ahab, or I guess more apropos would be like Dr. Loomis, where after he figures out of his escape, he will stop at nothing to see that this man is either put back in prison or, in the case of the ending, spoiler alert, killed. And I think the escape scene, for at least how abstract it is, in the way it's shot, I really do enjoy it. Of course, he's sent to a mental hospital, and which I can only assume is a cross between Smith's Grove and Arkham Asylum. But and the one from Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. But yeah, and I think his escape is fairly probable. It doesn't seem like it leaves the realm of possibility, and yeah, I mean. If you want, I can talk all day about this movie, but I do think some of the scenes are very well shot. There's a scene where Richard is actually in the elevator, and the three girls are at the front, and as they're walking towards their room, he's walking the other way, and it sort of shows how much of a looming presence he is in this movie, where it seems like he's around every corner. And yeah, you know, a lot of times on this show we tend to talk about movies that we hate or at least are iffy on, but I mean, it's a pretty damn nice change of pace to talk about a movie that I love unapologetically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than that, that's really my 2 cents. I also think that the scene where he orders the maid in his room is really creepy. And while dancing, Michael and Claire get into an argument, and Claire goes up to her hotel room, and she is killed by Richard. Michael comes up to try to make amends, but while he does that, he's actually looking through Claire's camera and sees pictures of...
Richard is, by the way.
Richard is, yeah. He's looking through pictures on Claire's camera of Bobby and Donna. And it's creepy because he's sitting on the floor right next to Claire's corpse, just completely unfazed. And once he's in the room, Richard ends up killing him, and Ronnie and Lisa go up to the room for I think you know what they're going up to their hotel room for. Yeah. Before Prom King and Queen are called. While they're getting it on, Lisa remembers seeing Richard in the hall and rushes out to warn Donna. However, she falls down the stairwell and sees Richard and tries to flee into a floor that is under construction, but ends up getting killed in the process. And yeah, another heartbreaking scene where literally everyone in this movie who she was excuse me, who she was friends with, and sort of gave her a sense of stability through her trauma, ends up being killed to the same person, and it's just, good God, this girl has been through a lot. And, that's the paragraph. So what did you think about this section of the movie?
Well, did you notice, this is one thing I didn't like about the movie, did you notice that the part where he slashes Lisa's throat looks, like the bloodshot looks exactly like it did when he slits the guard's throat?
Yeah. Also in that scene, the way the lighting was is like, it's sort of, like, the blood didn't really look like blood. It sort of looked like some sort of strawberry goo. But, yeah, that's
it didn't even, it just did that thing where it, it hits, it was very narrow, it's like a stream of blood, and it hits a clear curtain or something, and that's, like I said, we kind of saw that before, and it's, the fact that it was that they had prom at a hotel is really what seemed to open the door for a lot of Richard's killings. It made it so much easier that they were gonna be separated at times. They were sleeping in the same room but in different suites, and they were around just a group of other there was probably going to be some drinking going on, so yeah, it seemed it seemed like almost too easy for someone to pull off something like that. And it's also we forgot to point out that Ronnie actually is seen holding an engagement ring box after Lisa leaves in a hurry, to imply he was actually thinking about proposing that night, in which she gets killed. So that's that's like the teenager equivalent of like, damn, 2 days till retirement. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I interrupted.
And also, before Claire went back up to the room to cool off after she and Michael were getting into a fight, she actually was telling Donna how she had horrible cramps. She didn't say specifically why she had them, but I'm just gonna make a guess. So when Richard killed her, it was just like, come on, man, isn't she already bleeding enough?
Yeah. It isn't explicitly spelled out, but I don't think she's cramping because she ate Chipotle. As far as this section of the movie, at least for me, this is probably, if there was a section of the movie or a paragraph as we have for our script, this would be the part of the movie that kind of loses steam for me. It's where the bulk of the killings happen, but most of them are pretty uninteresting. Lisa's death, it's cool because of how the lighting and the setting is set up, but wasn't there literally a jump scare with a cat? Or something to that effect?
What?
Like a cat jumped out in front of her or something? It's like a fake jump scare? I could be wrong about this, but I
don't remember that.
Yeah, but other than that, I always like the look Richard gets when he sees Donna with her boyfriend, because it's always like he has this look of sadness, as if her having a boyfriend was standing in the way of their having a relationship and not him being a psychopath.
Yeah, he was just like, damn, we were so close to being a thing.
Yeah. And, so soon the body of a man Richard killed to use his ID and car is found in the trunk of said car. He was actually a missing person who had not come home, and they ended up finding her. and finding him, I'm sorry. So Wynn and Nash then go to the man's hotel room and see the maid. Wynn sends Nash to the Turner house and evacuates the hotel. He pulls a fire alarm, and the SWAT is brought in to find Fenton. Donna goes back to her room for a shawl and runs into Richard. She tries to hide under the bed but gets away. They don't find Fenton because it's revealed that he ended up killing a bellhop and sneaking out wearing his clothes. Yeah, so what's your opinion on this?
Well, I thought, first thing is that, I would think Donna at this point would have much better survival instincts. It's like they're all leaving in an emergency and she's just going off by herself back up to her room to get a shawl. I mean, maybe survival instincts isn't the best word. Maybe it's, I would think she'd be more, reclusive to just be alone than to just be alone like that, especially when they're having to leave in an emergency. Like, the fire alarm is pulled, but, clearly there's no fire.
Yeah.
So it's like something else is going on, and it's like, if a cop says, you gotta leave this building right now, and it's so serious we can't even tell you what it is, yeah, I'm getting the hell out of there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And so that was just kind of my opinion. And so, and also, I mean, did you notice that they find, what was it, Wynn recognizes his voice, Richard's voice, when all the staff are leaving. He's right there with them. He's basically hiding in plain sight, and he asks them all, is all the staff with you guys leaving? And a few people said, yep, think so, all of them, and one of them was Richard. So that's kind of how Wynn knew Richard wasn't at the apartment, and it kind of makes you think, man, if Richard simply hadn't said anything, he probably would have gotten away with it.
Yeah. Also, on that, I think it's also clear that he's trying to disguise his voice a little bit, but obviously it doesn't work. And if I had to pick maybe a favorite 15 minutes of this movie, this would probably be it. Because by the time when the fire alarm gets pulled, there's this great little 30-second snippet I love as an amateur filmmaker, where cops and fire trucks are coming in from all sides and people are filing out into the streets and everything is complete chaos. And it's just such ratchets up the tension of, is Richard going to get caught? Is he this, that? And it's sort of,
I mean,
a great tension builder.
They pretty much tore that hotel apart to try to find that guy. They busted doors open with battering rams. They looked in the air vents, and that's, by the way, they found Lisa Michael's body during this, and Claire's during this, and they let Ronnie know. So, but yeah, it was pretty intense, and it must have just been a total ball buster to tear that hotel apart and then find out he actually left, that he literally just walked right by him.
Yeah, and also, on what you said about her going and getting the shawl is something that I didn't particularly like either, because, of course, obviously there is no fire, so they're pulling the fire alarm, one, to get everybody out, but two, to also not start a panic. And what was the one thing you were taught if you're caught in a fire when you were in first or second grade?
Just get up, form a line, and walk out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try to get anything. Things can be replaced, but you can't. And so that, it's sort of, she's essentially potentially walking into a fire to get the shawl. I think, her aunt will understand. But because the aunt already at this point knows that Richard Fenton has escaped. So
Right.
I think that she'll understand, but the thing is Donna doesn't know, of course. And the twist of him escaping dressed as a bellhop, and hit his first with the car, them finding the car. I really like that because Richard Fenton at points is very reminiscent of Michael Myers, and I think that him killing somebody, taking his clothes and ID, and then stealing his car and driving across the country is a really escaped serial killer thing to do. And and obviously you can tell that between the flashbacks and when the movie takes place that he shaved. Never mind. That he actually shaved, which I believe is something Ted Bundy did after he escaped from prison. But and other than that, the Sarge bullshit.
Pardon the interruption.
Yeah. Oh, the horror fans meet Sarge.
Hey boy, how you doing?
Or a little nuisance of a dog. But anyway, so he is able to escape versus bellhop, and honestly, I love that twist because it's extremely likely because of how chaotic it was, and his ability to just hide in plain sight. So I really like the twist. It's not something I can explain or measure why I like it. It's just something that's sort of innate. This scene and this, part of the movie is very tense, and that's probably what I love most about it.
One thing I would like, if you're done...
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I would really like to point out that was also really a controversy throughout this movie that would probably also be a controversy if it happened in real life is the detectives and Donna's guardians, they really had to kind of, make a judgment call here because on the one hand, she had a serial killer on the loose, but on the other, they were grappling with the fact that it was her senior prom night too, and it kind of makes you think, that would be like canceling somebody's wedding or their bar mitzvah or their graduation because it's like it just seems like a huge lose-lose. Like this isn't any other day.
Yeah,
that's going on.
I really appreciate that point because I would have mentioned it earlier. The addition of the parents not really knowing what to do. Usually in movies, horror movies, the reason that the escaped killer is not told about is to, quote, not start a panic. It's fine, it's reliable, it works. We saw what the results of not doing that is in Halloween Kills. But in this movie, I think it's a lot deeper than that because it's a person dealing with drama or trauma, and they're not even sure that he would come after her, but due to the nature of his killings, he most definitely would.
Yeah.
But again, a senior prom night is not something you can get back. It's not something you can replace. You only really get one of them. And so tarnishing that, it's a hard call. And I, even though they're fictional, I don't envy the Guardians having to make that decision.
I mean, and they did, I thought, make a good call where they didn't cancel it, but they didn't even tell anybody until they had to, but they had police all over the frickin' place outside of Grand Pacific, and in case anything did happen. I mean, that ended up not being the right call because he was already in the hotel before they all got there, but still, I can respect their decision.
Yeah, and I love the front desk character because in his first scene, he's Richard overhears that they're on the third floor, and then front desk for some reason ask if he has a preference. I don't know if they do that in fancier hotels, if he has a preference on where he'd like to stay. Maybe they just want that booked up. But also, I like when Win comes in with the picture and he's like, have you seen this guy anywhere? And he's like, no. Is he dangerous? And I'm like, well, I don't think he's sought after for shoplifting. But yeah, other than that, I like the idea of them just sort of subtly providing security, because that could just look like regular security. I've been to dances in my time here on Earth where cops will be at the front door, but that'll mainly just be to stop kids from bringing in drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so other than that, as we race toward the end, Bobby and Donna are driven to Donna's place by Nash, and the two go to sleep in her bed, but Donna has a nightmare about being attacked by Richard. Wynn bolts to Donna's house when he realizes how Richard escaped, and when he gets there, he sees Nash has been murdered, and so has the cop guarding the backyard. And she sees that Bobby is dead and has been made to look like he is just asleep. And Richard then grabs her and puts her in a closet, and as Wynn comes in, but she is able to break free, and when she is about to get stabbed, Wynn rushes in and shoots him to death, and then is shown as they all comfort her and police arrive as the movie ends. So what do you have to say about this?
About this part?
Yeah, just this part of the movie, and then we'll get to final thoughts.
Well, I thought it was weird how at the very end, like, Wynn came in and shot him, and then, like, a few minutes later, and then, like, right after that is when the Guardians came in, even though, like, their room was literally across the hall. It's like they were, that scene where we hear Donna screaming, and then when Wynn comes in and shoots him to death, is like, that's a good half a minute scene. It seems like plenty of time for the Guardians to go over there too, unless maybe Wynn actually told them to stay back until he handled it.
Yeah.
But I digress. I thought this part of the movie was pretty good, actually. It's one thing that is kind of that I noticed is, like, when this movie came out, you were like 3, so you didn't really see. You probably don't remember the trailers. I, however, do because I was like 12. But in the trailer, what happened is the chaperone, who is also the one that took the liquor from Michael, actually, she was about to announce prom king and queen, and as we pointed out in the movie, right before she does the fire alarm is full, but in the trailer, what happened is right before she announced king and queen, all the lights just went out completely, which is really kind of makes you think, is like all the lights in the gym, they didn't like ever go out. He was. So I mean, I guess that was just something they decided to do in the commercials to make it seem more dramatic, but yeah, that was. There's not really much I have to say about that part.
Yeah. My only comment on this part, and I forgot to mention, one thing I really love about this movie is the vibe of it. I feel like it masters. I've been to 2 proms in my life, so I don't not have experience, but it sort of masters the feeling you have, like, on the day of, like before prom, when you're at prom, after prom, and the people who aren't at the dance just being home doing whatever. And I like that sort of gives the movie an air of realism in what could have been just a polished teen movie that didn't really look all that realistic. But I really appreciate that they went the extra mile to give the film a certain vibe, even if they didn't mean to. I will say one thing: when not finding anything suspicious about a room where every light is turned off and there is one corpse on the bed, and where Donna was supposed to be asleep but now is gone, uh, you know, I can probably see how Richard was able to get away so many times. But yeah, this the ending is standard fare. It's very reminiscent of what's that one movie? The ending of When a Stranger Calls, and not the remake, the original. But yeah, actually, this movie in general, as now that I think about it, is kind of similar to that movie, but it's not a rip off or anything, I swear. But yeah, we're going on 40 minutes. So what's your thoughts? What's your final thoughts?
I thought that the movie was great, honestly. I liked the premise that they had over the original with Jamie Lee Curtis. Just, I mean, what was it that in the original, like, they killed a group of friends as little kids, accidentally made a kid in their friend group die, and he came back to haunt them at their prom?
I want to say that it's been like 2 years since I've seen that movie, but I want to say that they killed a kid while playing, and then that kid's brother came back to be the killer.
Well, yeah, I really like this idea better. The fact that, it's a more mysterious idea. We kind of can put everything together. They kill a kid, his brother comes back to revenge, but it's like, no, with this one, it's like we're talking about a grown man who was, for some reason, obsessed with a high school student, and then killed her whole family, and then came back to haunt her at her prom. Like, that really just gives it more of a mystery, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, it's really no actual complaints about it. If you're looking for something to watch, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, well, as for... I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
I was going to say something. I was going to ask people to leave in the comments, but I'm drawing a blank.
I can give my final thoughts, give you time to think about it.
Go ahead.
I really like this movie. It does have the standard fare of a teen movie, in the sake of some questionable dialogue and polished montages. But other than that, I honestly prefer this film's premise and execution to the original. The original came out at a time where every slasher movie was trying to recreate Halloween. And while this one has that same vibe as Halloween, it has more creativity to it. And I like that it's just a standard slasher. The original was a slasher. It was a whodunit. It was this and that. And, it had an overly complicated backstory when the movies it was trying to replicate, like Halloween and Black Christmas, really went for the less is more approach. And that was sort of the, what's the word for it? Achilles heel of most early 80s slasher movies. And so, yeah, I would go out on a limb. You can, tear me to shreds in the comments, but I think I speak for both of us when I say that the Prom Night remake is actually better than its original. Yeah, so, yeah, have you remembered what you wanted to say?
I was going to say, put down in the comments, if you were a cop or someone's parent or guardian in this situation, like, what would you do after hearing the news? Like, would you actually, like, would you just go straight into where the prom was being held and drag your kid or the kid out of there, or would you try to hold off to wait to see what else, like, wait till it gets drastic before really doing something, or is there some sort of middle ground you would find? Just let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and that's good. But as far as my rating, I would give this movie a solid 9 out of 10.
I give it a 9 out of 10 too.
Well, anyway, I'm Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
And if you will be attending a prom in the coming weeks, I hope you have a sincerely great time. But for now, this is Oh the Horror, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Oh, by the way, yeah, drive safe, don't drive drunk, just all that stuff.
Yeah, if, use safe sex, use a condom.
Right.
This has been Oh the Horror. See ya.
See ya. Yeah.